2.8 billion people, two of the oldest civilizations on Earth, clashing ideologies, and a rivalry over who will rule Asia in the 21st century. The feud between China and India is probably more important and crucial to geopolitics and the future of Asia than any, and very few people are paying attention to it. Over the next few years, India will surpass China as both the world's largest population and the fastest growing economy. India's democratic worldview, its increasingly tech-savvy population, and startups with explosive growth make it a much more attractive place for capital to flow in the next few decades compared to an increasingly authoritarian and closed China that is choking private businesses with Xi Jinping's ruthless crackdown on open markets and ease of business. But on the geopolitical scene, China is hurting India's progress left and right in trade and deal making as well as in politics. India is also fundamentally different from China, and it might not yet be ready structurally and politically to compete as a superpower on the global scene. So I want to ask, how on earth did China and India become the rivals they are today? What will be the consequences of this rivalry for the rest of the world, and who's better positioned to win? On the unlikely chance that you've been following the development of port and trade route ownership on a global scene over the past few years, you've probably come across this map. It's a scary map if your interests are not aligned with the Communist Party of China, showing how just over a few short years, China has constructed, entirely bought, or holds a majority share in over 96 major ports around the world. Once upon a time, this was how European empires managed to control the most important trade routes in the world. Today, China is doing the same. The Americans have given a name to this Chinese strategy: the String of Pearls. It's a massive set of infrastructure projects that allow China to commercially and militarily control the most important trade routes in the world. Ignoring the scary cluster of Chinese-owned ports in Europe, for our cases today, it's a strategy by China to control the Indian Ocean and consequently isolate India. The Gwadar port that comes with a naval base in Pakistan, the Chittagong port and naval base in Bangladesh, Colombo and Hambantota ports in Sri Lanka, as well as commercial, naval or military ports and bases in the Maldives, Myanmar, Oman, Malaysia, Djibouti, Ethiopia. You can see it when you connect the lines. Shipping routes, ports, roads, and infrastructure projects designed intentionally to isolate India and allow its neighbors to develop. A plan to woo India's sphere of influence towards China. Meanwhile, India has failed to do much of anything regarding closer ties to the West to mitigate this. During the entire Trump administration, both countries had a great opportunity to, as a backlash towards China's more aggressive attitude, sign partnerships and trade deals that weakens China. Instead, Trump imposed his stupid tariffs on India, China's regional rival. I don't think Joe Biden even remembers who Narendra Modi is. While China is able to unite countries based on how authoritarian they are or how deep its pockets are, India has neither the ideological influence nor the economic power that China can wield at will. But it's not all bad for India. The country's economy is 5 times smaller than China, sure, but it's catching up faster than most people would have anticipated. The tech sector, the financial technology sector, even to an extent its manufacturing, are growing at breakneck speed. Now, of course, when it comes to numbers released by the officials in either country, as Reagan said,
trust but verify.
China is believed to have buffed its GDP growth rate by over 2% every year for well over a decade. And India's growth rate has seemed suspicious to say the least. But with all that aside, especially given Xi Jinping's aggressive tech crackdown, billions of dollars worth of investments by spooked investors have been flowing out of China and into India. So with all that, India may indeed be well positioned enough to pose a big threat to China and even stop China from achieving dream of the Chinese century. But it's not all that easy. And to understand why, we need to take a step back and look at some history of how this rivalry came to be and how it's evolved. Trade, scholarly and cultural exchange have been happening between two of the oldest civilizations on Earth since antiquity. But that's a tale for another story, since what concerns us today is the events that happened between Indian independence and the Communist Revolution in China. India, having gained its independence just 2 years before the end of the Chinese Civil War, was the first non-communist country in Asia to open up diplomatic relations to a red Beijing, just about the time that China was invading Tibet. India even accepted Tibet as part of China in 1954, but this was the start of the rivalry. India published maps with defined borders to make sure China doesn't make claims on Indian territory as part of the now annexed Tibet. Let's just say China didn't agree with those maps, and the two countries have been clashing over border disputes ever since. A few years later, in 1959, India gave asylum to the Dalai Lama, and China started to get really angry. They accused India of expansionism and then made claims on vast swaths of internationally recognized Indian land where thousands of Tibetan refugees had settled. During the 60s, the border disputes continued, and in most cases, India was the one getting pushed back. China even supported Pakistan in the 1965 war between India and Pakistan. Things started to cool down from there, and several trade deals and partnerships were signed between the two countries with some disputes here and there. But then, in 1998, India started testing nuclear bombs, which kinda really scared China. But again, why let disputes over the largest unmarked landborder in the world and human rights violations and nuclear standoff get in the way of good old trade? And that's what happened. With China on the rise and the Indian economy developing, the two found a lot of common ground for trade, with of course China having the upper hand in most cases. The minor disputes have continued today, and the border clashes hit a 30-year high in 2020, leading to a lot of tariffs and a blockade on Chinese technology in India, but things are still not warm enough to resemble even anything close to a Cold War. One thing is certain though, China increasingly sees India and not Japan as its number one regional rival, and India is increasingly resentful of Beijing. Two things are clear. In a post-COVID world, India probably has nowhere to go but up. Its economy is advancing, its tech-related workforce is quickly becoming one of the most important in the world, and it's generally a friendly country. Meanwhile, China, the second biggest economy in the world's biggest exporter and biggest creditor, is showing increasing hostility on the global scene. The rise of a new Cold War, its intense authoritarian attitude, its support of other dictatorships, not to mention Xi Jinping's crackdown on private enterprise and foreign investment, have all made China's economy quite vulnerable. The fact that makes the economic and political development of both countries extremely crucial is that China and India are fundamentally different, in that China is a totalitarian country with absolute control over its people and the direction of the country. The Communist Party relies on economic growth to stop its people from revolting against it, while India is the world's biggest democracy, even if it's a flawed one. The people decide the future of the country, and they're still struggling to agree on a direction to go towards. The rivalry between these two Asian giants won't just rely on military strategy or economic sabotage, but also heavily influenced by each country's internal political developments. But regardless, it will be the most important rivalry in the Eastern world for a good portion of this century. Only time will tell how these two countries will evolve and how their internal developments will affect their relationships, their economic growth, and their geopolitical strategies. For the time being, it looks like China is tightening its chokehold around India. But if history has taught us anything, is that nothing will ever go as planned. Who knows what India has up its sleeve and what Black Swan event will affect its strategic position. If you like this video, subscribe to catch the next one, and if you want to finance more high quality videos like this, please check out my Patreon. See you next time.